the Hockey Podcast Network.
I was walking through the halls of a Minnesota rink when along came a Wild fan who started talking smack to me. He said, I bet you never liked the Blues until they won a cup. And so I calmly turned to him and said, hey man, listen up. I admit it's pretty great to win Lord Stanley's prize, but listen, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues. I know Federico, Turnbull, Gilmore, Brown, Channel, Bothwell, Babich, Maher, Mullen, Millen, Sutter, Pedersen, Pavsey, Kerr, Zukli, Uthart, Hunter, Schofield, Reeves, Ramage, Kia, Dunlop, Wickenheiser, Crombie, Benning, Raglan, Ewan, Micheletti, Ramage, Romney, Kozlowski, Evans, Cavallini. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues.
Hello and welcome to Blue Notes, located on the best city on the Mississippi, the best in the Midwest. We've got that 2019 Stanley Cup power too sweet to be sour. And if you're still clueless, we're talking about St. Louis. I am one half of your Blue Notes team, Tom Franklin, joined as always by the man called Wags. Wags, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. It is fall. Yes, it's hockey weather, but it's also chilly weather. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm having my first bowl tonight.
It feels so much like hockey, hockey weather right now, but we don't have NHL hockey because COVID is stupid. Anyway, let's go ahead and, have a fun, happy episode today. We've got a lot in store for you today, including just a primer about who exactly Torey Krug is, from a diehard Boston fan, the most diehard Boston fan that I know. She is one of our newest hosts on the Hockey Podcast Network, Renee Cummings and her dad. They co-host Generation Bruins here on the Hockey Podcast Network, and we're going to ask them some questions about one Torey Krug and just who exactly the Blues are getting here. Also want to give a quick shout out to our Blue Notes Question of the Week winner Les from this past week, and he is on Twitter. He is known as Tony N at Toe Knee Boy 24, like your foot toe, your knee boy BOI 24. Love it. So Tony, we're going to contact you after the show here to get you set up with a Blue Notes Classic tee, which if you are watching the stream, you may have noticed that at least one of us has a brand new Blue Notes tee. Wags, show that thing off. It is a thing of beauty.
It is beautiful and it's comfortable. And when I got it, I told you, I go, this almost feels like my roller hockey jersey. It's slick, it's smooth, it's breathable. It's sweet. I'll leave it at that. And there's a backside of it too that I can't really show you right now, but it is Blue Notes through and through, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the description on where you can get one of those. Also, I got mine as well, a classic tee. We have a couple different t-shirt options at teespring.com/stores/Blue Notes. This is the one with the logo. Yours is the one with the word mark. The word mark ones I had to take down just because your shirt has a small error in it. So I had to take it down. I'll repost it here later on in this week as well. So yes, lots happening here with Blue Notes. We also, by the way, on that actual Twitter question, I guess I should probably talk about that a little bit, seeing as, there was a poll, there was votes, there was commentary on it. Let me go ahead and actually pull that back up here if I can find it here.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of votes on that. I mean, we had over 100 votes on this.
Yeah,
on this one. It was pretty much exactly what we were hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. So we asked you, Torey Krug is a St. Louis Blues defenseman. We're still as surprised as you are about that. Who should his defensive partner be? We had, as you said, Wags, 105 votes. 56% agreed with me in saying that it should be Colton Parayko as Krug's partner, as that, top number one, number two pairing. 31% of you said Justin Falk, which I can see. 8% suggested said Marco Scandella. 5% said someone else. So there we go. We'll have our new Twitter poll here after the show, and it is right behind me here. It is simply put, Torrey Krug at $6.5 million, I believe, is a far better value than Petro at $8.8 million plus a no movement clause. Prove me wrong. We're going to ask that on Twitter. Would you rather have Krug at 7 years, $45.5 million, or would you rather have Petro at far more than that with a no movement clause? We'll ask that on our Twitter page at Blue Notes Pod after the show. And I'll go ahead and ask you that, Wags. Would you rather have Krug at 6.5 or Petro at 8.8 plus no movement?
As much as I love Petro, and I was clamoring for him to be here, you joined us on our show Crunch Time earlier this week, and we talked about how this negotiation mirrored that of Albert Pujols, and really this aftermath kind of mirrors that as well, in a sense that you've got somebody that might be comparable at a better price and also allows your team to spend more money on guys that are going to be coming up as well. Colton Parayko is a guy that's going to be coming up soon. Robert Thomas still needs to be signed. What you do with Vince Dunn is there as well. Jaden Schwartz. So I am going to go with Krug at that money and at that term, and liken it to what the Cardinals did by keeping Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright, and so on and so forth. So I like Krug more than Pietrangelo with the full no movement clause.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Petro's a better player. I mean, that's there's no doubt about that at all. If money wasn't a concern, I would far rather have Alex Pietrangelo over Torrey Krug. And that's not a knock on Torrey Krug. That's just how much I revere Pietrangelo and how good I think that he is. But, the fact of the matter is Pietrangelo will retire a Vegas Golden Knight.
Yep.
Period. End of story. He ain't going anywhere. He can't go anywhere. And Vegas has a few contracts that are like that, which is going to be problematic down the road. They might be looking like, I kind of compare them nowadays to like the Toronto Maple Leafs of the Pacific, where you just have so much tied into just a few players, and they might end up having Chicago Blackhawks type issues down the road. I don't think Petro is going to be the next Brent Seabrook. But at the same time, it's going to be troublesome. Like look at San Jose, for instance. Have you looked at San Jose's defense? They have so much money tied into just 4 defenders that are at least 30 or older, and one of them is Erik Karlsson, who is made of peanut brittle. So that's very problematic.
Well, and you also look at it in a sense that the Blues have won their cup. Vegas is going after it, trying to win their cup. So they're going to throw everything possible that at the wall to stick until they win a cup. The Blues actually have that, and I know it's weird saying that, but they have that flexibility of knowing they've already won the cup. So they know that they're not fighting to get there. They've already been there. Now it's about finding ways to stay under the cap, stay profitable, and get back there. Whereas Vegas is looking at it like, we got to go win one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Vegas is definitely set up for, the next couple of years. Absolutely. And then, after that, well, if you get one of these, up, in your arena rafters, I guess you can answer the questions later. That's basically how Chicago did it, and that's how a lot of teams, I think, they're trying to follow kind of that formula, if you will. So we'll see how that goes there. In terms of, by the way, we have a couple interesting things lined up for you this week. In addition to Renee and her dad talking about Krug, we probably have the most epic Aloha commentary that we have had since this whole thing started and our partnership with Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, has started.
Yeah.
we jokingly said last week that we cannot wait for the Aloha commentary from atop a volcano. He actually went up to a volcano this week. He went up to he hiked up, and it was a good mile and a half hike up an ancient volcano in Hawaii. Guy, bruh, dude, you did not have to do this, but you did. And we have to hook him up somehow. So, at the very least, next week on Blue Notes, Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, will be our third host. He'll be alongside us for the entire episode next week. No, we're not going to ask him to like go out into the middle of the ocean and stream with us or doing something crazy like that. I love the effort, guy. I love the effort. Our listeners, our viewers love the effort, man. But seriously, that's what she did this week's impressive. So we're gonna
Above
have
and
that
beyond.
literally above and
Yeah.
beyond. Way above sea level. So yeah, we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Not a whole lot going on in terms of St. Louis Blues news this past week. The free agent frenzy has kind of simmered down to a very light boil at this point. There's still some interesting free agents out there. But is there anyone out there, Wags, that you would try to move heaven and earth for at this point?
No.
Yeah.
Because someone put out there and made a point that they're like, oh yeah, Mike Hoffman's still out there, and you're like, oh yeah, but someone also made a great point that there's at least one player in every locker room that has probably played with Erik Karlsson and wants to take a run at Mike Hoffman. And I don't want that kind of negativity in the Blues locker room. We already have that negativity with the fans on Falk. So we don't need that negativity in the locker room, just, outside of it on the players. I mean, that's natural. So I just don't see anybody in the free agent market that I'm like, that's the guy you got to go get. I really don't.
I mean, Mike Hoffman would fit only if this were like the 90s St. Louis Blues and Craig Janney's wife was available on waivers.
Yes.
Spousal issues have been a part of the St. Louis Blues franchise over the decades. I don't know if they want that culture now, though. So I don't know. So yeah, Hoffman's about the only one that really jumps out at me. This past week, the Toronto Maple Leafs signed 94-year-old Joe Thornton to a 1-year, $700,000 contract. He thinks that the Maple Leafs are a great place to win a Stanley Cup.
Sorry.
And Wags just impersonated the entire Twitter sphere, with that little giggle there. It's Joe. I'm sorry, dude. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen at all. One other thing that came out this week is we're starting to look forward to the next season, whenever that's going to be. First of all, I think it's pretty fair to say, Wags, we're going to have to wait on that Blues Wild Winter Classic. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think so either. And that's okay, because that just means we've got another year of building up our reputation so that when that does come around in the following year, we're up there doing this show live from the Winter Classic up in Minnesota.
And that gives us a chance to save up, prepare a little bit. Maybe we crash at, State of Hoppy's house. He's one half of the Soda Pod here on the Hockey Podcast Network. And we'll see. I was actually talking to Isha, who is a co-founder of our network, and he also is the other host of the Soda Pod. And, we were talking last night, or I guess Saturday night before After Hours, which I had the pleasure of hosting this week. He was telling me that he lives in Victoria, British Columbia, or at least on Vancouver Island. I think he lives north of Victoria. And he was telling me that, he's gotten to know so many Minnesota Wild fans and people throughout his podcast that he has gotten so many offers to like crash on their couch. He thinks that, if he ever had to move to Minnesota, he would never have to pay rent ever, basically, because, he would just be that vagrant, that's always on the couch. So, that's some Minnesota hospitality there for you. I haven't got any offers like that here in St. Louis, but
we're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. We're working our way up to Isha levels of vagrancy here on Blue Notes. But speaking of the Minnesota Wild, I bring them up a little bit, and I talked about this on After Hours last night. Which, by the way, if you want to check out, it was me and about nine others in the Hockey Podcast Network, just shooting the breeze, having a few drinks, talking about issues around hockey, a little bit about free agency, and it was a good time. We went until midnight, and you can watch it on the Hockey Podcast Network Facebook page or the Patreon page, which for just $1, you can get a lot of unique content that you won't see elsewhere within the network. Like, for instance, Nicholas Horwat of Tip of the Iceberg podcast, he is in the process of analyzing every NHL EA Sports game for the past 20 years and determining which games have the top 5 soundtracks content you will not find anywhere else. And it was so funny, Wags, because like they were, I apparently did not know this was a thing. Shane Ryan and Nick got into a bit of an argument over like Shane was saying, well, NHL 14 had the best soundtrack, NHL, and then Nick was like, no, NHL 18 had the best soundtrack. I'm like, I don't even remember what was it. What songs were in those years? I don't remember. I don't even know which ones were in last year's.
Same here. I don't. I mean, I know that there have been some good songs that I've enjoyed while playing NHL, but I couldn't for the life of me tell you what those songs were or what year they were a part of.
I mean, I can remember like NHL '94, 8-bit sound, songs. I mean, who can? If anyone that has played hockey video games, and that's our age, who can't recall the NHL '94 menu music just off the top of their head? I mean, seriously, down, 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 down. It's ingrained into my psyche, But in my opinion, the last 20 years, you don't have anything like that,
No.
with the EA NHL games. But you know what? Get a refresher on our Patreon page at the Hockey Podcast Network. Nicholas Horwat will educate you on NHL EA Sports soundtracks. But anyway, that was a bit of a diversion there. Wanted to work that plug in. And we brought up Minnesota because there's some interesting things that are potentially percolating among behind the scenes in the NHL. And the Vegas Golden Knights owner accidentally revealed some potential plans for the 2021 season. According to David Pagnotta at the Fourth Period on Twitter, Bill Foley revealed some options the NHL has been exploring for the 2020-21 season in a radio interview yesterday with Brian Blessing. The options, and per a high-up NHL source, that's all these are, as no plan has been formalized, include a 60-game season, a Canadian division due to border closures, which don't get Isha started on that. He's also a Vancouver Canucks fan, and he is not looking forward to those East Coast games in Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. He's not about it at all, and I can understand that having to deal with the Vancouver Canucks in the playoffs and those 9:30 starts. I get it. I totally get it. No decisions are expected this month. They're looking at a possible February 1st start date. Everything will continue to be monitored and considered, including border closures and COVID case spikes. Pagnotta says he's expecting a gradual capacity increase as the season progresses before we get to full buildings. Ottawa apparently has a plan to put at least, I think it's like 6,000 fans into their arena, which, Ottawa's a franchise that could use all the, money they can get.
Can they get to 6,000 fans?
I hope Shane Ryan's not listening to that. He of the Sens Hour podcast, he would be yelling at us right now. But everything's being weighed. As of now, NHL arenas are booked through the end of July. If NHL still wants 82 games, travel will play a factor, even if borders open. Expect a more geo-friendly schedule for 2021 with more back-to-backs, regardless of number of games. Still too early to determine what routes the NHL takes, but one thing is set, there will be a season. So some of these ideas here, first of all, I mean, obviously, Wags, you would like to see an 82-game season. You would like to some semblance of normalcy, but a 60-game season seems like a reasonable compromise to me.
Yeah, it does, and it also sets it to where you can kind of get the seasons kind of back in line with where they're actually supposed to start. Because if you think about doing an 82-game season and you don't start January 1st, then you're pushing into midsummer, late summer, and then a training camp for next year once again gets pushed back, and maybe the start of the next season gets pushed back. So at some point, we have to kind of get things back in line with what we're used to. So a 60-game season might be the best option. It allows you to kind of give some players a little bit of rest, because we saw what happened in baseball this year with especially with the Cardinals, with all of the back-to-backs and just players getting worn out, and you're going to talk about roster expansions and all that. So I would just say 60 is probably the best bet. Make sure everything's in place and go that route.
Yeah, very reasonable, very reasonable. And you obviously don't want to repeat of like what's going on in the NFL this season, which they are getting through the season, but not with some headaches. I mean, you had the Titans this past week. You had the Chiefs. Our former Battlehawks quarterback Jordan Ta'amu tested positive. That's a sad call, for sure. And just the NFL's had some issues. I mean, they're they're kind of working through them, and I kind of wonder if that's going to be the new reality for like the NHL, for instance, where they did a great job with the Stanley Cup playoff this year. I mean, there was no positive cases, the bubble worked, but you can't have that for a regular season. I mean, you're pretty much imprisoning players for 6 months if you're doing that, and no, just no. We're not even going to go into the Constitution and your rights as an American or a Canadian. That's just wrong. So you're gonna have to have some travel. So the suggestion, and this was an idea that was pitched by someone on Reddit, I believe. Barstool Sports also picked up on it. You would have a Canadian division where you would have Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal in one division, their own division. And that's, obviously because, there's border issues with COVID. You have to quarantine for 14 days if you go up to Canada. That's obviously, if you're going back and forth, I mean, it's going to take about 5 years to get through the season. So it's just not going to work that way. So you have that division. The most important thing for St. Louis is that St. Louis would lose effectively Minnesota, Dallas, and Colorado in their division this year. Those three teams would go to the West to play with Vegas, Anaheim, the Kings, and the San Jose Sharks. So that'd be one division. In the Northeast, all the Northeast teams would stay together. So you'd have Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Washington, Philly, Jersey, Rangers, Islanders, Bruins. Which, if you look at a map, all those teams can basically take bus rides to each other, which I think is a little unfair. But COVID doesn't care about fairness, obviously. So where does this lead the Blues? Well, get ready to welcome the Detroit Red Wings back into our lives, because Detroit and Columbus would jump the Central Time Zone and join Chicago and Nashville and the Blues, and then they would join Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida in one division. So the Blues could be playing interdivision games against Pat Maroon and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So what do you think of this concept, Wags?
Honestly, I think it screws over some teams.
Yeah.
It screws over the Eastern Canadian teams having to play out, in Vancouver, Edmonton, that sort of thing. It screws Colorado and Dallas in a sense because they're having to play on the West Coast. And honestly, Minnesota too. Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah. They're probably going to have the longest travel of all of them.
Probably.
And then you look at the Florida teams really, and it's going to screw them over as well. But there's really no better way to put them together. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it looks. I would be excited to see Detroit back in here because obviously that rivalry for me growing up was very crucial to my childhood.
Same.
And now all of a sudden you're going to have not only Pat Maroon and Kevin Shattenkirk coming back up here, but then you're going to have Robbie Fabry coming back in with Detroit as well. So there's going to be a lot of Blues connections there and some interesting matchups. I'm okay with it, but I'm okay with it for one season. After that, I want to get back to normal.
Exactly. Same here. Absolutely. And, the other reason I would welcome Detroit back in a division with the Blues.
Because they suck now?
They suck. They are horrible. They should have gotten the first overall pick and would have if we didn't have a lottery system. But they're not good. They are not good at all. But they have Bobby Ryan. And if this were 2009 or so, that would be exciting. But it's 2020.
Yeah, if that were the case, you wouldn't want to face Columbus either, because then they'd have Rick Nash. So I mean,
exactly. So, well, I don't hate it, for the Blues. I mean, because the Blues actually stay somewhat centrally located, geographically. I mean, I think Nashville would be the most central of all the teams, but the Blues. I mean, and going to Florida, in February and March. Teams aren't going to complain about that because, it's Florida and it's warm. Maybe in July they would complain a little bit, but not in February, March. So I think for the Blues, it's okay. I think you're right, though, in that it really screws over some teams. And as I said, that Metro division, with Boston and all the New York teams and Jersey and Buffalo together, there's like almost no travel there
No.
whatsoever. That is, hugely unfair. Absolutely. And then you have like Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto that would be constantly going back and forth from Vancouver. That's a tough deal. Now, another thing that was mentioned as well is that they might have to play more back to backs. Just because of travel. I mean, if you go to, like, say the Blues go down to Florida, for instance. They may pick up the Panthers, like on a Tuesday night, and then either play them again Wednesday or go to Tampa. Do you think that, but it kind of brings up an interesting question, though. So, like in baseball, for instance, baseball historically has had series where
Yep.
you go and play 2 or 3 games at a time and then you move on. Would that be a good idea for the NHL?
That was actually exactly what I was thinking. As soon as I saw this kind of lineup, I was thinking, especially for the teams that have to travel so far, why not do sort of series, mini playoff runs? And there might be some excitement you can draw out of that too, because, the strategies and things that would go into that as well. So I would definitely think that would be more likely what's going to happen, especially if let's say you're Toronto and you're heading out to, Western Canada to face Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. Why not maybe knock those games out over the course of a couple weeks, and then you're not necessarily having to travel out there frequently. It's kind of one big trip. Maybe you play a couple of 3-game series and then you fly back, and maybe you don't even have to fly back there again. So that was actually the first thing that came into my mind, and something that the NHL will probably look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't hate it either myself. I mean, just because, it would allow teams to stay in one place, for a couple of days to ensure that they're not like bringing COVID, from, town to town to town to town. Ideally, you want to try to mitigate travel as much as you can. So like a 3-game set, against teams, I think that's perfectly fair. You would probably need to, like, say for instance, you'd have to be creative. So like, the Blues could play in Florida, like, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, let's just say. And then they can go to Tampa and play like Saturday, Sunday, and then, Tuesday, let's just say, for instance, just to give them a break day in there. Because, hockey is a little more intensive than baseball, So, like, if you're playing back to back to back, that's grueling. That is incredibly grueling. So you need to give them a break. But then, that's a week in Florida. You've gotten 6 games, 6 games out of the way, and over the course of a 7 or 8 day period, and then you send them back home. They can't. I mean, because the one pitfall with that is that you might leave a team like on the road, for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. So that you'd have to be like going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like I said, this virus doesn't care about fairness, so this is just the NHL is gonna have to get creative with this season, but they did a great job with the playoffs. I'm confident that they will find a way to do this with as little issue as possible. So, but we just got to wait. We've got to wait and see. I mean, I get the feeling that the conversation we just had are the conversations that the NHL is still having, just very hypothetical at this point. So, I guess we have to watch football now, Wags. I mean, because there's nothing else going on. I mean, there's no
The
NBA's
World
done.
Series is getting ready to start, and the
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Rays are in it right now, and it's either the Braves or the Dodgers. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you could have some interesting pieces there during the week.
And the Houston Astros are not in it, which is good. So
Yes.
so there you go. Yeah, may have to get into it. May have to get into some World Series baseball. Well,
It's going to be on for a week, so.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll have some rule. Then not long after that, we'll have college basketball. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Speaking of things that are fine, normally at this point, this is where I would tell you what's coming up. We would segue into Aloha Commentary, tell you about the guests coming up on the other side after we pay some bills, and highlight a Hockey Podcast Network podcast. But this week, they told us to be the promo. We are the promo that you'll hear us on. At least you should, assuming everyone's following the rules. On all 30 of the other Hockey Podcast Network podcasts this week. And Wags, I'm proud of this. I think this is a damn good promo. And at the sound of sounding egotistical, I'm saying that. I'm completely egotistical here. But you know what? We don't get a lot of chances in life to be total egomaniacs here. So we're going to be egomaniacs by playing the promo that everyone in the Hockey Podcast Network will see. And tell me when you're done watching this that you don't want to watch or listen to Blue Notes. Here we go. Oh, hi there. Pleased to meet you. My name is Tom Franklin, one half of the Blue Notes podcast and the Hockey Podcast Network. We've got that 2019 Stanley Cup power too sweet to be sour, and we're also your home for the best Blues analysis.
Yes, it's a Bruin, but he's going to help the power play, and that's what people need to understand. And they're going to look at it and say, oh well, Justin Falk was supposed to help the power play as well. Torrey Krug is legitimately going to help the power play.
Felt like Newport was ready to go into this offseason and use Pietrangelo as an example and say, okay, we're going to play chicken here with the COVID cap here. Someone is going to give Pietrangelo his money. We also have great guests from here at home. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, St. Louis Blues beat writer Jim Thomas, the organist for the St. Louis Blues, Jeremy Boyer, and around the world.
Yo, Blues fans, it's Gerard, the Dutch Blues fan, all the way from the Netherlands.
And no other podcast can say they have a Hawaiian hockey correspondent, but we do.
Aloha! I'm Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, and this is my Aloha Commentary.
Plus, a little self-deprecating humor thrown in there. One of our new Blue Notes Selkie level COVID mask, if I can turn it the right way there so I can properly sell it. You know what? I am failing my Price is Right model audition right here. This is terrible. He has opted for the neck gator version of this, and I'm still failing my Price is Right audition. Fuck it. Voted the best podcast by our peers in the Hockey Podcast Network. Follow Tom and Wags on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Blue Notes Pod, and be sure to subscribe to Blue Notes wherever you get your podcasts from. This is Tom Franklin reminding you to not be a chump and always play to the whistle. Now give me my Emmy.
Here.
Okay. Thank you, Wags. I accept this award on behalf of all the little people that have gotten us to this point. No.
It was great, man.
Yeah,
that was really really good.
I'm really not good at bragging about myself. Really, this was my first attempt, and it bombed. So but there we go. We're going to be the promo this week on all of our Hockey Podcast Network episodes. We're honored. Of course, we're always, we're honored to be voted by, our peers as the best, podcast in the network. It's always an honor to say that. And so just, there we go. There are our fruits of labor at work here. So, we stalled it enough. And of course, you saw it in the promo. We are unique in that we have a Hawaiian hockey correspondent, and he is a guy that he is a guy. His name is Guy, and you all know and love him. He has been a part of Blue Notes with his Aloha commentaries for the past couple of weeks, and I'm bigging him up right now. I am lifting him up off sea level, just like he did to film this week's Aloha commentary. Wags, I still can't. We were joking, Guy. We didn't actually. You didn't have to go up a volcano, but you did. You absolutely did. You absolute madman. But we'll take care of you. I'll probably shoot you out a mask or something this week just as a thank you. He actually asked for one in the video, by the way, Wags. So,
yes, he did. I did see that.
And it's like, when you see what he did for us this week, I mean,
it's the least you could do.
It is the least we can do. And we'll have him on as a full, host and guest next week here on Blue Notes. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and play the Aloha commentary for this week. And then after that, we'll play some Bills, and then we'll bring on Renee and her dad to talk about Torrey Krug and a little bit of Stanley Cup, nostalgia here, because 2019 feels like it's about 20 years away because of COVID. So we need something happy to and something great to refresh our memories. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play that Aloha commentary.
Aloha! I'm Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, host of the Blue Note Fan Report. And if you just seen, I'm taking you on a little bit of an adventure. Today I'm at the Lanikai Pillbox hike, and I'll explain why I'm there in just a bit. Over my left shoulder is an island known as Chinaman's Hat, and I can't remember the name of the island on my right, but they're about a mile out in the ocean from the beach. So, join me as I take you on an adventure. Tom and Wags, you owe me a face mask and a gator for this. Well guys, I tried to film myself coming all the way up. I got 3/4, so I'll give you this beautiful scenery around the island before you get my commentary.
I feel like such a photographer right now. Yeah. I'm having too much fun. It's looking sick. Oh,
And that up there is the other pillbox, but I ain't gonna make it. Well, I made it to the top of the first pillbox. And why did I take you on this epic little adventure? Well, just like Lion's Choice, this place is famous for a reason. This hike is moderate but challenging, and this place was used as a defense mechanism during World War II. This bunker and the one that I showed earlier were built in the 40s. Well, that adventure of defense is what the Blues are going to have now. A lot of people are thinking that that Krug and Parayko should go together. I kind of don't. I think if you put Krug and Parayko together, that you may be putting too much of a distance in between your top line and your middle line. I would like to see Parayko with Scandella and Krug with Falk. I think that lessens the difference in abilities, and it also gives you more minutes to spread around. At least that's my opinion on it. Oh man, I'm having a hard. Hey guys, not only do you owe me the mask and a gator, you gotta help me get some sponsorship for this, because I'm going to need it for my medical bills after this one. I'm trying to breathe hard, heavy there. So, you know, this is going to be a fun off season. Armstrong's doing the best he can, guys. He's got a cap he's up against. He's making the moves he needs to make. He tried to keep Petrangelo. Petrangelo didn't want to stay. That's all there was to it. He can say he wanted to, but he didn't. The other thing to quickly talk about is the possibility of this maybe one-off division change, where the Blues are going to kind of be in this central division that's going to have Chicago, Detroit, Columbus, Nashville, and the 2 Florida teams. Not sure how much I like this. You have all the Canadian teams together and you're only going to play within your division. That's 11 to 12 games against the Blackhawks, against Nashville. I mean, that's good, but it gets boring. I'm just not really sure I understand why they're trying to do it. I'm just not sure it's the right thing to do. Like I said, guys, you owe me for this one. This is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, almost out of breath. And I got almost a mile and a half to go to get to my car. And I'll kind of show you how far it is here as I fade away into the sunset. Aloha and mahalo. And if I don't die on the way down, I'll see you on the next Aloha Commentary and Blue Note Fan Report. Please like and subscribe to the Blue Notes Pod and my fan report. Aloha. Okay guys, as I go away, you see that island there? My car is directly behind that hill. That hill is that far away. That's what I did for you guys.
This episode of the Blue Notes podcast is sponsored by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-belt grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Got a crazy bush? You know if you trim your hedges, your tree stands taller. Have you ever wished she was smoother down there? She probably has too. If you're anything like me, and or just not a neurosurgeon with a steady hand, you probably neglect below the belt. Manscaped has us covered. Millions of balls are about to be nick-free thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology. Manscaping accidents are finally a thing of the past. Whew! One of the coolest features is the LED light, which illuminates growing areas for closer and more precise trimming. That's insane! If you're listening to me speak right now, you're one of the first people to hear about this life-changing product, and I want you to experience it firsthand for yourself. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code THPN at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping again with promo code THPN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the promo code THPN. The best in men's below-the-belt grooming.
And that beautiful NHL 94 music means it is time for our Blue Notes face-off of the week. And for the first time in Blue Notes history, we are going to have a Boston Bruins fan on our podcast. Wags, I know it's hard, but we got to do this. We got to get through it. It's going to be okay. Luckily, I called this Bruins fan a friend of mine. Her name is Renee Cummings. She is the one half of the new co-hosting team of the Generation Bruins podcast here on the Hockey Podcast Network. We had the Brits on Bruins for the Hockey Podcast Network. They have moved on to start the Europuck podcast. They're staying within the family, but they both are from England, and so they wanted to take a shift towards European hockey, which is they're very informative. It's Odd Man Rush and Chris Gadsby know their European hockey, and I always feel like I learn something when I listen to their podcast. So check them out. But in the meantime, in steps my old radio buddy from Fort Wayne, Renee Cummings, and her dad. They both it's a father-daughter combination, and we're glad to have him here on Blue Notes. You haven't seen them yet because we actually had to due to some scheduling issues. We had to have Renee and her dad record the answers to the questions that you're about to hear beforehand. So we've kind of cobbled them together. We spliced them together here, and you'll get to hear them here on Blue Notes. So our first question, and you'll understand why we wanted to have them on this week when I asked them the first question here, and that is your first reaction to when you heard Torrey Krug was going elsewhere.
For me, I feel like I felt every emotion except for being happy. I was sad. I was upset. I was mad that he was leaving. What about you, Dad?
Well, in this day and age, if you could put it in an emoji, mine would have been the puke emoji, just to make it short and simple.
Did something happen during contract negotiations between Krug and Boston? Was the Blues' interest in Krug as surprising as it was to us?
With the things that I've heard about the negotiations, I mean, it sounds like, the Bruins just didn't offer him enough money for his liking. or his agent. I'm not sure, how much input Krug had in it, but it sounds like they just didn't offer him enough money, so the Bruins pulled the offer off the table, and we know what happened next.
Yeah, he signed for basically the exact same deal, but with the Blues. So yeah, it was very surprising that he decided to go to the Blues and that the Blues even wanted him.
Sure, a lot of teams would want him, but the fact that he signed essentially the same contract but for an additional year, it's like, he praised the city of Boston, how he wanted to stay there and all this stuff, and then he leaves for just the addition of one more year. I mean, to me, that doesn't make any sense. But, what can I say?
You've talked about Krug on your podcast already, and you've made your love for him very, very apparent. What made Krug so beloved with you and also the Boston fan base?
For me, it was his passion and desire. I mean, here's a guy that's 5'9", and he would be all over the place. He was a physical player, which is hard to believe for someone that size. But his heart and passion, for me, is what set him aside from other players. I mean, if you had a whole team that had his heart and passion for the game, I mean, you'd be winning the cup every year.
Yeah, he definitely. We mentioned this on our podcast a few times, but the heart and dedication that he had was beyond anything I have seen from recent players in the NHL.
So many players are good, even great players, but they don't have the heart and passion. And then you take Krug, who, he's a very good player, but he's even better because of his heart and passion.
At this point in time now, who is considered his replacement there?
I would say it might be too early to tell on that one. It could possibly be Charlie McAvoy, but it could also be Matt Grizzlick, because they're both good puck-moving defensemen, and that was Krug's biggest asset on the power play was his puck-moving ability. But I would say it's either going to be McAvoy or Grizzlick.
Yeah, I'd be fine with either one of those two replacing him. I hate even saying that.
Okay, so we've established that Krug was a big part of the Boston franchise. What are the Blues getting with Krug? We keep hearing how great he is on the power play.
You're literally getting everything with Krug.
Yeah, like I said, he's good at both ends of the ice. His size doesn't matter to him. You're getting a guy that he has like a sixth sense out there on the power play. He can see things happen before they happen, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I'm definitely going to miss him.
Yeah, like I said, you're getting everything with him.
Finally, hockey is a team game, and getting along with your teammates is so important. After Krug laid out Robert Thomas in the Stanley Cup final, your thoughts on how Krug handled that controversy on Twitter?
I feel like at this point you have to be civil, because what are you going to do? Beat up your teammate because you're still mad about something? No, you get over it. I feel like a lot of these guys, you have a big fight with someone, and then you're probably texting them the next night saying, "Oh man, sorry about that. Like, hope you're okay."
A lot of these guys grew up playing hockey together, and you'd be astounded at how many of these guys actually know each other. And it's not like it was a dirty hit; it was a clean hit. So I don't see why there would be any animosity between either of them.
Yeah, I think he handled it well. He handled it with humor, and if Robert Thomas is still mad about it, they can figure it out on the first day of practice together.
Oh yeah, they can. There's plenty of fights that happen during training camp, and if one of them has a problem with the other one, that'd be a perfect time to hash it out.
All right, so let's go into recent history here. Boston fans, of course, they were the Blues opponents in the 2019 Stanley Cup final. They took the loss, I felt, as kind of like oh, shucks, and just kind of moved on with their lives and acted like they've been there before. Is that an accurate point of view in your eyes?
I'm going to say no, because if your team is playing for the cup or the Super Bowl or anything like that, it's not just an aw shucks you lost type thing. Like if you're a real fan, you're going to be upset about it.
Yeah, I don't know any Bruin fan that had an aw shucks attitude about it, especially how the officiating went in that series. And, I guess that's all I'm going to say about it.
And we love Boston media here in St. Louis. Not really. The Boston media seem to give the Blues a lot of flack for their physical play in the Stanley Cup final. Did you feel the Blues were being too rough?
I don't think that there is too rough in hockey unless you're like literally like being horrible to somebody. I don't think the Blues were being too rough. I just think a lot of the Blues things weren't getting called.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Hockey's never been too rough, but the officiating was definitely questionable in that series, and I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so Tuukka Rask, we got to talk about him. He left the bubble during the playoffs, and there's some speculation as to what his long-term future is in Boston. It looks like he's coming back, but what is his future in Boston?
For me, I absolutely love Tuukka Rask. I wouldn't want anyone to replace him. Obviously, I don't want him to go anywhere. However, it's his choice. His future in Boston, for me, I hope he has a future in Boston. I don't understand why so many Bruin fans don't like him.
Yeah, I don't either. He's had his moments in his games where he hasn't had the greatest games in the world, but that happens for every athlete, and obviously it stands out a little bit more if a goalie has a bad game. It's going to stand out more than the third line defenseman, but. Yeah, I hope he stays. Everything I've heard, it sounds like he's going to, but, hey, that could change this afternoon.
And you can't end an interview on Blue Notes without plugging yourself at every opportunity. So where can we find you guys? Social media accounts, and what are you guys talking about this week?
If you want to follow the Generation B podcast, you can at Generation B Pod on Twitter. Thanks for having us on this week.
All right, Renee Cummings and her father here on Blue Notes. Want to thank them for coming on. Check out Generation Bruins. I assure you, even though it is about the Boston Bruins, Renee and her dad have a fun time, and you might learn something by listening to their podcast too. So I want to thank them for coming on here and being able to accommodate each other's weird schedules here. But that's going to do it for this episode of Blue Notes. Next week, you've heard him every single week on Blue Notes, at least for the past couple months. The Hawaii Blues fans, Aloha Commentary as well. As a bit of a thank you for his efforts here, and also just fill the content hole a little bit. We're actually going to have Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan, on as our guest for the entire episode next week. So if you want to hear his more on his thoughts on the offseason, his love of the Blues, and just anything else, get your questions in right now, 314-329-4349, or you can just leave us a tweet or a Facebook. If you've got any questions for him, please feel free to share them with us. I'm looking forward to having Guy on. He's been a great ally in this effort here, and we certainly appreciate having him on. Wags, any final thoughts?
You know what? I'm just ready for something to happen again in the world of the NHL, and hopefully we get a decision here in the next couple of weeks about when the season will start. Whether that's beginning of January, mid-January, beginning of February, I don't really care. I just want to get some clarity and move forward.
Yeah, I really am too. It's this, and now it's just we're gonna get into that time phase where we're just gonna be without hockey. I mean, there's gonna be no hockey news. It's just gonna be kind of a void, and it's gonna be so difficult because we're used to hockey this time of year. The weather, it feels like hockey weather outside, and yet no hockey. So, anyways, just a reminder as well, you can get our new Blue Note shirts on Teespring. .com. Just look for the Blue Notes store there. It's teespring.com/stores/Blue Notes. We'll link it in the description here, so you can check that out. We also have our masks. And don't forget our question of the week. Would you rather have Torrey Krug at $6.5 million per year or Alex Pietrangelo at $8.8 million per year plus a no movement clause? We'll have that on Twitter for you here after the show wraps up here tonight, which is going to happen right now. So I want to thank you for listening, because without you, there is no me, there is no Wags, and there is no Hawaii Blues fans Aloha Commentary, and there certainly is no Hockey Podcast Network. I'm Tom Franklin, reminding you to not be a chump and always play to the whistle. You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk covering every team in the NHL. New episodes every Monday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from.